collapsed banks and other financial institutions have not been paid their severance packages. While the private sector, which is supposed to be the engine of growth and job creation, continues to suffocate under the yoke of high cost of doing business. Distinguished friends from the media, one of the cardinal sins of this Akuffo Addo government is their misplaced priorities that have underlined government's expenditure in the last 5.5 years. If you are one of those who have been wondering what the billions of tax revenues, borrowed funds, Eurobonds, oil revenues, and donor funds totaling about 500 billion Ghana cedis that have accrued to this government have been used for, look no further. Just check the Auditor General's reports from 2017 to 2020, and you'll be shocked at how this government continued to waste meager state resources on profligacy, consumption, and corruption, and other financial irregularities. Even in these times of extreme economic difficulties, that presidents who were once accomplished businessmen, like the South African president Cyril Ramaphosa, are traveling on economy class and so on, and they're traveling on business class. Our president continues to fly around the globe in hyper-expensive and ultra-luxurious private jets like an Arabian king at a cost of $20,000 to the already impoverished taxpayer. Fellow countrymen and women, it is totally unacceptable. It is totally unacceptable that at a time when government cannot afford to print textbooks for basic school children, at a time when secondary schools, nursing training institutions, colleges of education are confronted with an acute food crisis, and many Ghanaians are struggling to afford 1 square meal a day, government will continue to waste the meager resources of state on the rental of luxurious private jets for the president and on other wasteful expenditures. But ladies and gentlemen of the press, we are all too familiar with the numerous excuses that have been canvassed by the Akuffo Addo-led administration and their many apologies for plunging our country into this unprecedented economic turmoil. Despite having profited immensely from COVID-19 inflows, this government has sought to blame COVID-19 for everything in Ghana today, including even when the sun fails to rise. Even though we admit that, like all countries in the world, the COVID-19 pandemic and the Russia-Ukraine war have had negative effects on our economy, these global factors are not the major factors that have plunged us into the economic mess we have on our hands. For emphasis, neither COVID-19 nor the 5-month-old Russian-Ukrainian war is to blame for the economic malaise we have on our hands. And we say so for the following reasons. Number one, Ghana's economy showed signs of serious challenges even before COVID-19 struck. The World Bank's country director has been emphatic that our economic challenges persisted before the COVID-19 crisis. For instance, before COVID-19 was recorded in Ghana in March 2020, for those who are interested in statistics, the public debt had increased from 120 billion as of December 2016 to 225 billion, representing a nominal increase of 105 billion Ghana cedis in our public debt stock already. That was before COVID. Our debt to GDP had increased from 56% as of December 2016 to 64% in 2019 before COVID. Debt servicing, the amount of money we spend on the interest on our debt and on the principal that becomes due, had increased from 11 billion in 2016 to 37 billion in 2019. and constituted about 90% of tax revenue. That was before COVID. The budget deficit, which is the measure or which is an indicator of how responsible or reckless a government is. Because the budget deficit is simply the difference between expenditure and revenue. The budget deficit had hit 7.5% in 2018 and 7% in 2019, even though governments dubiously tried to conceal it from the people by claiming it was 4.8%. It is instructive to note that the 2019 budget deficit of 7% was above the fiscal responsibility or the fiscal threshold of 5%. So even before COVID, government had exceeded its own fiscal threshold of a budget deficit of 5%. They were doing budget deficit of 7% and above, which means that they were being reckless already. The recklessness had long started, and they were spending far more than we were generating in revenue. They were living beyond their means. The Ghana cedi in 2019 saw depreciation of 12.9%. That is almost 13%. This was before COVID-19. And if you recall, the government at the time announced a 19-member committee. And my senior brother, Franklin Kudo, was a member of that committee to investigate the reasons for the depreciation of the cedi. That was before COVID. It is worthy of note that the cedi depreciated by 9.6% in 2016, despite the many serious global and domestic challenges the country was confronted with. Again, before COVID, growth rate for the construction sector had declined from 8.4% in 2016 to negative 8.5% in 2019. Negative 8.5%. And the growth of the manufacturing sector had declined from a growth rate of 7.9% in 2016 to 6.5% in 2019 under the much-touted One District, One Factory initiative, even before the COVID-19 pandemic. Secondly, the reason why COVID-19 cannot be blamed for economic woes is that even though the COVID-19 pandemic has had some negative effects on Ghana's economy, its overall impact on tax revenue has been insignificant. In 2019, before COVID, the Ghana Revenue Authority raked in tax revenue of 43.9 billion. So let's say 44 billion Ghana cedis. In 2020, when COVID struck, government projected tax revenue of 47.2 billion, revised saying to 42.7 billion because of the pandemic, but recorded more tax revenue of 45.3 billion. In 2021, government projected tax revenue of 57 billion, but recorded the total tax revenue of 57.32 billion. That is a 265 million Ghana cedis excess. In short, unlike other countries, tax revenue in Ghana has seen consistent steep increases despite the advent of COVID. Thirdly, the Akuffo Addo government has had close to 35 billion Ghana cedis, equivalent to $5 billion, to manage and mitigate the impact of COVID-19, all of which has largely been wasted on election-related expenses. Our peers, such as Côte d'Ivoire, Benin, Togo, etc., did not get as much as $5 million to manage COVID-19. But these countries have done far better than Ghana in managing the pandemic and mitigating its devastating impact on their economies. Number 4, the Akuffo Addo government has had revenue from 3 oil fields, with daily production increasing from 70,000 barrels per day, with daily production increasing from about 70,000 barrels in 2016, to about 170,000 barrels, coupled with high commodity prices. And we are talking about oil, gold, and cocoa on the international markets. In all, this government has had total revenue of over 500 billion Ghana cedis, as compared to the total revenue of 200 billion that accrued to the ex-one NDC Mahama government. Their economic mismanagement and wastefulness is what has led us into another IMF program. Any government that has had access to over 500 billion Ghana cedis in revenue and still collapses the economy to the point of needing an IMF bailout must be the worst government in the history of the world. Finally, COVID has affected all countries in the world, including Ghana. It was a pandemic for God's sake. But whereas our peers such as Benin, Togo, Côte d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, Nigeria were very responsible in how they spent in 2020 to manage and mitigate the impact of the pandemic on their economies, thereby recording deficits of below 8% and debt to GDP ratios of below 65%. The Akuffo Addo governments borrowed excessively and spent recklessly for election purposes, thereby recording a record high deficit of 15.7% and a debt to GDP ratio of close to 80% in 2020. In the year 2020, when the COVID pandemic struck, Burkina Faso recorded a deficit of 5.7%, Côte d'Ivoire recorded a deficit of 5.6%, Nigeria recorded a deficit of 5.8%, and Senegal recorded a deficit of 6.4%. But Ghana alone recorded a deficit of 15.7% because of the reckless election-driven expenses and wastage the NPP Akuffo Addo government engaged in. Did COVID-19 affect Ghana than it did our neighbors? How come that none of these countries, who were all affected by the pandemic, are recording double-digit deficits and high debt to GDP ratios of about 80%? How come none of these countries are recording inflation rates of 30%? To quote Dr. Barumia, how did COVID-19 and the 4-month-old Russia-Ukraine war jump over Nigeria, Benin, Côte d'Ivoire, Togo, and our other neighbors to attack only Ghana? Your guess is as good as mine. Ladies and gentlemen, the truth of the matter is that the economic mess we have on our hands has largely been brought about by the reckless spending, excessive borrowing, and crass economic mismanagement of the Barumia-led economic management team. In conclusion, friends from the media, the economic hardships Ghanaians are currently reeling under today can be discussed all day, and yet there will be still space to contain the story of the tragic mismanagement of our economy by the Akuffo Addo Barumia-led government. The continuous mismanagement of our economy by the Barumia-led economic management team has borne various negative fruits and occasioned manifest difficulty for the generality of our people. It was clear from day one that Ghana's economic train was headed for a ditch, yet President Akuffo Addo has watched with complicit indolence for Hàrdśhip and his cousin, the finance minister, Atta, to keep the steering wheel to a point of no return. Against all wisdom, sound counsel and pep talk from us in the opposition, civil society, and you in the media, this government refused to take remedial steps early on and will not repent from recklessness, profligacy, and misplaced priorities. Today, our economy is gasping for breath and has finally landed at the doorstep of the IMF. In case you want to know the economic temperature of Ghanaians today, just a stroll into one of the nearby markets at Nima, or Barumia's favorite market, whilst he was in opposition, Malata, will reveal this reality to you. Today, an Oloka of Gary, which used to sell at 5 Ghana cedis in 2016, is going for 14 Ghana cedis. While a paint bucket of tomato, which used to sell at 8 Ghana cedis in 2016 in Accra, is now being sold at 50 Ghana cedis. Similarly, a bag of cement, which used to be sold at 27 Ghana cedis in 2016, is now being sold for 62, at some places 63 Ghana cedis. Whereas the 1.5 mm cable metal that used to be sold at 78 Ghana cedis is now being sold at 222 Ghana cedis. We are not saying that prices must come down. Prices will obviously go up because of inflation. But just look at the quantum of increases we are witnessing now, unprecedented. In similar vein, ladies and gentlemen, a bag of pure water that used to be sold for 1 cedi 50 pesos in 2016 is today being sold for 8 Ghana cedis. A crate of eggs has increased from 12 Ghana cedis to 36 Ghana cedis. And a bag of maize, that is the one I find most shocking. A bag of maize has increased from 170 Ghana cedis to a whopping 650 Ghana cedis. In fact, somebody is telling me from the audience that it is now about 700 or what Ghana cedis. Ladies and gentlemen, even the president's once favorite drink, Calipo, which he drank for fame in 2016 at a cool price of 50 pesos, is today being sold for a whopping 2 cedis, 50 pesos. How can parents afford to keep their kids happy with Calipo when Calipo is now being sold at such a prohibitive price? President Akuffo Addo may not be aware of this because now he doesn't drink Calipo again. He drinks very expensive champagne. But we just want him to take note. This, ladies and gentlemen, may be funny, but it is a sad reality of Ghanaians today. It is our sad reality. Almost everybody is feeling the brunt of the current economic hardship, driven mainly by food inflation, high fuel prices, careless taxes, among others. It goes without saying that parents and households are suffering. Public sector workers are suffering. Teachers are suffering. Teacher trainees are suffering. Nurses
are suffering.
And nursing trainees
are suffering.
Lecturers
are suffering.
And students
are suffering.
Market women
are suffering.
And drivers
are suffering.
NAPO trainees whose fate
are suffering.
is unknown are suffering. And police officers
are suffering.
Even you,
media,
the media,
are suffering more.
And the communication bureau is also suffering. All Ghanaians
are suffering.
All because of the bad leadership of the Bawumia-led economic management team. Most Ghanaians are now aware that President Akuffo Addo doesn't care about the hardships we are reeling under. Otherwise, why would he continue to appoint new ministers when Ghanaians are urging him to downsize his government? Added to this is the callous and insensitive burdens being imposed on Ghanaians by the Minister of Communications, the arrogant Osinawusu, in respect of SIM card registration, which, like other policies concerning recent telecom measures, are mere measures tended to line the pockets of individuals while Ghanaians grow under the yoke of hardships. The insensitive Akuffo Addo Bawumia government must understand that there will be a day of reckoning. As a responsible opposition, and indeed a government in waiting, we in the NDC cannot sit aloof while our economy descends into the precipice. Despite the recalcitrance of this government and its sometimes antagonistic attitude to constructive criticisms and ideas, we cannot afford to allow this present state of affairs to continue to fester. It is for this reason that we call on Ghanaians to join us in demanding that the Akuffo Addo Bawumia government takes urgent steps to ameliorate our suffering and help stabilize the economy. To this end, we demand the immediate repeal of the obnoxious and the counterproductive e-levy act of 1.5% on Momo and electronic transactions. Number two, we demand the immediate repeal of the punitive COVID-19 levy of 1% on the about flat rate, and on NHIL. Number 3, we demand the immediate scrapping of crippling fuel taxes such as the special petroleum tax that has outlived its usefulness, the border tax, the new energy sector levy of 20 pesos per litre of diesel and petrol, and 18 pesos per kilogram of LPG. Number 4, we demand the immediate suspension of the 9 pesos bus margin, the price stabilization and recovery levy of 16 pesos and 14 pesos per litre of petrol and diesel respectively, both of which are not being applied for their intended purpose. Ladies and gentlemen, the last 2 puzzles for this government to resolve, if it is serious about bringing our economy back on track and restoring investor confidence, is to get rid, I repeat, is to get rid of the 2 villains who have been at the center of wreaking this havoc on our economy. First on the list is without doubt the finance minister, Ken Ofori, who has proven to be an unmitigated disaster when it comes to economic management. President Akuffo Addo's cousin has run down our economy through excessive borrowings that his personal company, Data Bank, profits from. Today, his name scares away investors and evokes a feeling of insecurity for every Ghanaian. Ken Ofori has become like stale water in a bottle, and the earlier President Akuffo Addo fired his underperforming cousin, the better for the economy and all of us. As the venerable former President, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, recently said, regardless of our running to the IMF, the only way to begin the process of rebuilding, if we are to get any good deal from the IMF, is to sack Ken Ofori immediately and appoint a fresh, able hand in his stead to lead the IMF negotiations. And I'm sure you will agree with me. The next important thing for President Akuffo Addo to do is to relieve his jocular Vice President, Hàrdśhip, from his position as head of the economic management team. The one so-called solid economic management team has now become a gaseous team who have deserted their roles and are nowhere to be found in these difficult and critical times. It is about time our tired, clueless, incompetent, and comical Vice President is finally relieved for new ideas and competent hands to take over and steer the economic management team at this time of unspeakable hardships. Distinguished friends, we have no doubt that if President Akuffo Addo, who has so far proven to be headstrong and unreceptive to good counsel, will listen for once, he could begin the process of breathing life back into our ailing economy, which is almost at a point of comatose. Until then, our help is in the Lord. May God continue to bless our homeland, Ghana. Thank you very much for your attention. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Because I know you have no questions for me, I will quickly do a very, very brief summary in sheets because of our current stations here. As well, I'll plead with media men present here just to keep your cameras in position and just to remain in your seats for the next 10 minutes for the sake of our current stations here. Some of whom are streaming this press conference live, and may I ask that we will continue to stream this 30 minutes live for us as well. I'm going to share, and then you have to framework. I want to share any ability Ghana for you now, you come and not an NDC as the largest opposition party. That friend said, I'm not here to be come. Now, I'm one of my new for one. I better tell you, I'm now, I'm not here now, I'm high. So I said, you say, some of you that. They say, acquire that. Come with Sebi. You said, I'm only never been said, and then you're not queen, our Ghana. And you're my agent, Sebi. The Dia Titia Pansa. na wo ko dwom a wo be ko na wo hwe to aso bi na nyema bo akoso na nyese bia eme di Kenya ahokyere bagane odi ankasa ahokyere de awoma na kini if you come and come penso bi sina ahokyere wo Ghana ba dia me nya bra ye kasa de se wo be kwa ya nyema bo si ko so gungun so a nyema bo ko na sa ahokyere we die ye hu bi sinda enti I was saying na family the party are your one. The being said ye Ghana for Ghana. Na ye na ye kasa a tint to go or chabai. No to ye be far a hocha ye kum. And then so what far Adia was it good friend inflation and no never you go so I am more air cost right. Inflation do 30%. You're a from Yaso, now 15.4%. The exchange now, and I said, and then Swat, and Yama Bo Ecoso. You won't be say that. And see, Yama more very young, and I'm new senior decision for. And when you said, I got a low car, and I had like Mahama say 2016. Here come 5 Ghana cedis, and then a group 14 Ghana cedis. In toast, paints, bucket, buckets, not 2016, now a ton 8 Ghana cedis, and then a group 50 Ghana cedis in toast. And then a go bag 2016, a ton 170 Ghana cedis, and then come say 50, they become 700 Ghana cedis, and what and then in sachet water, you know, I can only a total 150 pesos. And they do 8 Ghana cedis and each. Calipo, one penny you could find a paper to me now or time of 2016 was a work and year campaign. As I'm only a ton 50 pesos 2016. And I was your 4 Calipo. I do 2 cedis of 50 pesos. And you see, and yes, I am a walk or and yes, I want you woman you take. I want you to wait it means Ghana for saying that. Ampa, it is you who are combined, and yes, sure, say, one of the years say, and I'm cool. And you see, the air can say, yes, party, say, and now you do that, and you know, I can't. When you say, Papa, so Papa, so many new dates, and you will be and you see, and you are Casa. And the air, I said, Mochia, air costo, the dear, yes, air costo. Now, inflation do 30%, and if he said, economic management team, Basu, who are Ghana, seek a sense of Yoruba, or Pineda, the Chidano. About to 2 years, now I want to know about it. On my foot to sound for commercial bill, now, yeah. Also, inflation, I want 30%, and I feel a real. Now, about 28.5%. Next, I said, we shall for a year and to swap up a beer and a watch that you couldn't. It means he said, I watch the one a day at the cost. And no, it's in the NDC as the largest opposition party. The CNT means now, sir. Am I buying on saying because on my name, say, yes, we are to be. Akuffo station here for top petrol and diesel. You need MPP need pump and you work NDC pump. You need to diesel 1 liter, 13 cedis, 30 pesos. 1 gallon, 60 gallon. So now one also compare dollar per. You need NDC need more, you need MPP need more. You need top dollar almost 9 Ghana cedis, and now you know Cassie. So I won't say yeah, you can go and check dollar do almost 9 Ghana cedis. Ampa. And now, more for finding in our betty. We are not on our bresso, none you get out, we can find Yama. Say now, I have 42,000 cedis somewhere now. Now we get $10,000. Let's need a find Yama. But the next one, we are not paying the same $10,000. I guess I was a son 90,000 cedis when you have $10,000. And in Tumuna Abba of about 48,000 of family. I just walk over here. That's what Bobo see and who see who Bosia no bla wo nyabi. Wa baya bosia ni na from the domestic banks. Enti eya rewose nipa bebre nyuma egu. Nipa bebre eyi ogu manfo because of the bombo dollar line akọ. Na they say the money no fa wo ye di gu ye ka mu. Se ne bo re kosora e me bibia bo e kosora. Because e bo re kosora ye beto lorry fail. Ti na ko fa mu to su ya ko mada e na 2016 mu 500 Ghana e fa nto. E ne u tua be 2000 3000 Ghana. Nti u be dum kan ya de ya onto su betu. Petrol bo a e kosoro amaka bo a ko e kosoro e na ma nyema bo e kosoro tichu sa. Na petrol no so a e ko so sa. Ya krefra ba no ne ye dollar ne kra. The oil marketing company na mi betire e $1 million. Jo mama breso no pesilis asesa for $1 million e de fuel apagana. Ama ye ni da to de we ka ho. 4.2 million Ghana cedis. Obenya $1 million e de fuel number. But now we pay the same $1 million now. I just look it up. Let's say 9 million Ghana cedis. Look at the difference. And you see all the marketing companies almost every money good, every money say so back or $1 near there. The now saying someone MP of what kind of food or so you get food or so you know proper the job. Because you also with my pentia. Because I buy where I know what say Lucifer. Or the Nessa Nifa the idea back on our not the Nessa Benku Achi. Okuye. Oh, the 13 cities, 60 persons, about 30 persons. And the dollar no could do nice city. We have Bianya, petrol, the Sanso and cost. One we are not gallon of diesel and petrol. They move from 50 system and the cost 70 to 80 by December. And we are dollar, they do 10 Ghana cities by December. In the any present, and can say, and foul more. Because, as a call for one is you and was saying, Nayakasa. Say, I can't, I buy away, or what is it to be in one day? Because I want you to be now. Oh, queer, and Yadia, or yet, the Papedia and your father. Now, apart from dollar now, and not a fool or walk or solo. And 12 do I buy necessary book petrol, so I can't be bad. I'm a bit more apostle. We shall go in there. Yariboni ababe saying person Numa. Na ahochaba plumha. Na oton ayento. Ufi ayentua. O ma pene kufu ado akofato a yen mu bi da. Yen ti bi pe senda. When the baller tax o dia ababe to diesel and petrol. Asanso akofato for a friend of special petroleum tax. I know 2015 about that buy because now I'm saying there's a farm more apart from the abandoned the bar said to be a sika yalim punchu. Now say a born cost of I'm saying that's what we hear for. And then Russia at home. I'm going to show you news. A born cost right came $117 per barrel. And in first one, abandoned that the leaders said we need free oil like you two or Ghana the farmer on the cotton. I cost some more. And yet, in America, on paragraph 27 of Omega Musika, now no do what they call machine. Check out. Said, I feel if it's a sell on my people for the river will be ready to say. All you know, you two organ and the farmer on the same for you mean $62. Then, Omega over $100 into many of us. It is a woman for so baby, I will find one you two have a farmer on any quarter swap. I don't know who to emphasize can you so Ghana for every asset. Not one who you feel. I buy no any winner. The beer Ghana need top petrol to diesel. 1 liter beer buy little petrol 16 pesos, diesel 14 pesos. Now what Texas says, you can one year go. Send a our paper room, and that which never found and send us work or found over so said the day or the says it cannot about the take farm more bonus or the friend subsidy or the other soil. Ghana need no cheer. I bet that's not just feel no different. Why did this say over 3 billion cedis? President Mahama, there's only this says you are what that come out of Roma. Near the top farm on SCA because the CA keep in cedis. The depreciation of the city will devalue it. It's the top farm on the CA the store. And it's a man said that's what war food across not box every disease strategy stores onto the market. They know it's now what it was. Okay, call girl, now at least a buying filling station or no island. A buying way to this again in our own still. I don't know my opinion for the year, not their charter will be sharing. Don't share about the $20,000. Not 1 day, 1 hour. As a Ghana, your opinion for Papa company as I will be used physical. And the Ekan is on my opinion before. Sika say, you know, Ghana for bread. This is not what you promised. You better to look at it and say, maybe I will wait if you're doing. Physical, a dinner open. If you see in Nayaka, and see any baby. Put your tea, you know, Papa, in my opinion. The food more from what you will you say, what if you be party then? And you're going to or I'm paying you before. And I brag, what will share your waiting here to buy. Oh, sorry, what was that plane? We didn't get a Boeing 737. They are overcut. Then you pay. Or back there, I won't fear woman be here to Minesika Airport Night Club. And then, yet didn't print it and one matters boost to pray. Was it? Yet say, I'm off your business school, same hour. And we are no way not putting new videos of a visual for Muslim ideas on the NDC, so much I can video. Or for my more new video, rather than me. And we are meaning say, you're more from water in the secondary school because we are in. So I buy the purpose for 340 million seats. Oh, yes, but in this private jet. Now, my real channel, I'm a second page. Oh, and you see, you catch up by the say, you go move. And it is our taxes here, I was the only fuel. Now, finance minister, I was say, or my easy casino, I'm not even fuel. I'm going to child like the and now as soon as our taxes now buy levy, COVID levy. I never able you come, levy put in a mobile money industry. Yenny, Papa Labor. One day you can take Ghana. Okay, come on 1 week when you have 500 Ghana. Or send 300 Ghana cedi. You are also one more time Libra. Send 300 Ghana cedi is a common man with grass and all that. You do a million. I say, Match 1.5% because when you sue mobile money. Why must you punish people for using digital platforms and expect say, Sika you rap sa abelfo. And she should be in digitalization. The big emphasis of the game of mine. And then we are seeing now. A man, my own will be bridge. I buy over all years and say, oh, it's in Yamasoma or 1 4. The M. my for Bosian. If you are why you're missing because of the native, I didn't have the same. A man might be so, I buy all, it actually Sika Brown or citizens. Yeah, Sika be about yet to fight COVID now. Over 35 billion. Maybe I say, and see how much they say, or more penny of Gina, machine in the 2020 elections for them, friend Felicia Tete. I was the new constituency, Northern region. Or say, you have to call this and another to chairman or no, you have 2 billion. And who this can have us. In our community, now investors now a room see flow many now ma is cannot hold and before. Almost say call this in a way. And I'm going to Ghana for the Yanka Sentino. Almost also the whole world yet been paying himself about it. COVID live. Say you are being your for can you say Yaria? I was saying many people do not need to see one. The sounds of the Yagani Pachi Ban, a general tax. It was your 4 hour. A star tax is way coupled with poor prices are also Dollar now air cost because of seed now at the Tiapansa and the whole world. Ghana seed and an ivory crab in Africa of the top currencies and Ghana seed in area. The whole world, Bloomberg foreign Kiomaya Ghana, we El Salvador Fiwa, Yana is 6% at the Tiapansa economy. And Obia was over where was here. Economy, I am a full economy, junk economy, the channel. You lose access to the capital market. That's the diaspora pay in market. Eurobonds since in GP. Because what's the baby on board? You can't win here. And I'm not gonna pay 120 billion Ghana cedis. Now I will do 393 billion in only 5.5 years. Now yet can see more 11 billion. How about do over 50 billion? And we are saying, oh my God, we need this to be here. Suppose you are going to pay a young son. And I see I did or my taxes I did in a Giaca. If you are carrier, I guess you are probably a process was only to make you see money. And I buy it my for you to your candies, your probably. You better point at this, your probably. You better A4 sheets. I buy it my for you, my card yet, you know, fool, you know, a card yes of my this, your probably. Or my own, I say. You see, also, by 10 years or so, no legal within the means, or cutting the coats according to the service. 11. If I spoke here when this one, if I spoke here when you are a basso, see, can be about what I pay for me now, on the way. At the end of what a boom industry. It's in Mumpium, no new fuel, Muntia Ghana Fuso. Now, I'm back for my papa so. And for mobilize the because in this case, we are a young seeker to Ilivia. And they Musopra and or how any amount. The Illian fuel. Common living, the first will be any so combinating a gem. 1,000 last key gram, I am shaming. They say, want to PP, what you call living, what you wear there. Yen fuel, special petroleum tax. And the international market price of crude, Apostle, ye fuel. Border tax. Ye the president Mahama said, yes, it's a border of woman, you have border tax on diesel and petrol. And now ye are put the fee, ye need tax in fuel. Ye let this now you have a local assemblies, everything be a proper yes, any taxes I have also in. Now, finance minister, I don't know why the one there will move to Yamana ye. My penny for the night in our funny, football, a Busiama Mono. Now, I'm many people for swapping. I'll see how to talk from what I've went on. Marcus, if they say all these people, you guys are the first I mean, and now Honorable Setepe, and now Isaac Adongo, and now to force the finance minister. You say, well, what party? Shame nothing about food here, or fresh ideas also be to about the other. If we see a cancer, my encounter. No, I'm paying. I beg your chamber with just what they say. Economy, no one can say, abroad so. Wage out to what? They say, you say, if you money are better position yet to say, digitalization and the DHH. My baby before any of basic casino, infinity. Near for head of economic management and many powerful. Now, so when you are saying digitalization, DHH, now your what time for the economy? No, to me, arrested dollar and stabilize the city. Or my essay. If he said, Sabine and Sa, and now I get a Sadia, which then so. I have to do that until we see changes in the political governance of this country. And that will be their asset. And let me use this medium finally to congratulate your regions. So far, to me every branch elections. I am reliably informed that so far all the 5 northern regions are done with their branch elections. Some will be done by the close of this week. We are encouraging all the regions to tell me branch elections so that they need to be also. Thank you very much.